Russell.
Thank you, Ken Corley. I've had some exchanges with your predecessor, with Minister Quinn, on the whole issue of the Teaching Council. I, with very many of my teaching colleagues, were extremely critical of the idea of a teaching council, and particularly when we looked at the way in which it was set up. And I'm going back to pre-June 2009, and the first engagement that we had with this teaching council was when we got these letters threatening us that if we didn't join up, we wouldn't be paid our salary for teaching. And this was at a time long before the Teaching Council had any legal right in order, to do that. So that bullying approach in the early days certainly didn't set the Teaching Council off to a good standard with teachers. And there were other areas of concern which certainly had teachers very sceptical there. And these were issues where the Teaching Council showed itself as being far from efficient. I did bring up with Minister Quinn that I was wondering about the loan that they got of 5 or 6 million to set it up in the first place, and I was wondering if that was going to be repaid, because they do have a very healthy income yearly from the subscriptions that teachers have to pay to them. I think as a profession, teachers are very much maligned by various sections in society. The sections who only see the holidays, they only see the shorter hours. And of course, they're more maligned now in relation to the stance that they have taken over the junior cert. And that stance comes from their loyalty to their students, to what they think is best for them, and their belief that the current, fair, transparent and open correction of the junior cert is what is good for their students. And very often we don't hear about the commitment and the dedication, the sheer hard work of teachers at both primary and second level, both in the classroom and outside the classroom. And my experience from my own school, and from the many schools and teachers I know, is of the time and the energy given in school and outside of school to the extracurricular, whether it's sports or drama or concerts or debating or theatre or competitions like the Young Scientists, the many field trips and the history tours. So many of us did find that clause in the Croke Park Agreement regarding additional hours per week quite offensive, because especially for those who were doing that voluntarily anyway. I also want to acknowledge teachers' flexibility and adaptability in embracing the many changes and new initiatives that have come in over the years. There's still a demand for careers in teaching. We see that in the numbers to CAO every year. And there's also a high level of satisfaction with careers as a career among teachers, unlike in other countries where they're having difficulties in maintaining the status of the profession. And that's notwithstanding the much lower salary that incoming teachers are starting with now, as opposed to other times. Now, there were difficulties, and we had a major battle over the original fee of €90. And this was a €90 that had to be paid regardless of whether you're a full-time teacher, part-time teacher, you might be only doing 2 hours, or you might even just want an interview to be considered a teacher, but you had to pay that €90. That has come down to €65, and there have been some issues addressed there. I've been also critical of the Teaching Council at their inability to collate accurate information on teachers, at their lack of accessibility to teachers, and at the way that they interact with teachers at times. There have been negative engagements between teaching councils and teachers, and a particular case that I am pursuing with the Teaching Council at the moment is where one teacher was taken off the Teaching Council. The Teaching Council is saying one thing about their efforts to contact him. He can prove otherwise, apart from one occasion. The first he knew that he was deprived 8 days' salary was when he got his salary, having worked that time, to discover that he was missing 8 days' salary. Now, the Teaching Council would say that they were making efforts to contact him through email and by text. It's now acknowledged that they had the wrong phone number and there were other issues there. But surely a personal call, I mean, they have a major staff, that a personal call to identify with this person, there could have been any reason why this didn't happen. There could have been an illness or a bereavement or whatever. I am a bit sceptical on what's being proposed in this bill, basically in relation to their ability to determine fitness to teach, notwithstanding the work of the current director, whom I have met and whose hard work and dynamism I do want to recognise. I think they have to prove to teachers still that €65 is worth paying. And I was just struck by some quotes from teachers that I came across about them. Useless regulatory body, jobs for the boys and jobs for the unions, absolutely no impact on the teaching profession. And I still have to see evidence of that. Expensive, pointless, self-serving bureaucracy. Well, they're comments from teachers whom I know. And I looked at the 2012 elections to the Teaching Council. There are 37 people on it, 22 for registered teachers, 6 from the unions and 16 elected. In one area, there were 7,497 papers issued for voting, 613 were returned. In another area, over 10,000 papers were issued, 800 or something returned. In another area, almost 10,000, 9939, and 751 returned. And I think that is just showing that the Teaching Council has an awful lot more work to do to prove their worth and their benefit to teachers, and that teachers will take them seriously, because I don't think the majority of teachers are taking them seriously. I do acknowledge what is happening in this bill. Everybody wants to protect our students. We want to make sure that they have the best teachers in front of them and that there are no issues regarding standards in terms of teachers, their personality and in terms of their work. But when I was reading this bill, I was really struck sometimes. It was almost like Salem witch trials, and there's a terrible vagueness about, you know, that the council won't register a person unless it has sought and received a vetting disclosure. It will refuse to register a person where it's not satisfied that he or she is a fit and proper person to be admitted. And then this other one, any other requirements to be met for renewal of registration, which may include requirements relating to completion of programmes of continuing education and training. Teachers are consistently and continually involved in programmes, many of them at their own expense and many of them outside of their own time. And I don't think that this is being acknowledged in this particular bill. In spite of all of my reservations on the entity that is the Teaching Council, I do hope what is being proposed here is in the best interest of our students and of their teachers. I don't think this bill is going to add to being a good teacher. It's going to just prove this Garda vetting. And there are questions also around, are there enough resources for the Garda vetting to be carried out? Thank you.